my name is TK from Richmond, Virginia, and you're listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, the podcast where two Midwestern moms talk progressive politics and political activism with expert guests.
Hey everybody, this is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics, and I am here with my co-host Sophy. Hey Sophy.
Hey Kelly.
And tonight we are here with Cam Davis, who is running for the Cook County Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. Hi Cam.
Hey guys, so great to be with you tonight.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this. I know Sophie is too. And when I was talking about it on Twitter, said, we're going to talk to someone you've probably never heard of about a race you probably didn't realize existed, but it's going to be super cool. Let's start by asking the question, what is the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District? Did I even say the right words?
Yeah.
I think I got it right.
You did. Absolutely. You know, the acronyms are MWRD, and sometimes when I hear people struggle with that, I think to myself, just think M weird, because MWRD kind of fits with that. But the key word in all of that is water. Water. And one of the reasons that I just love this agency and I decided to run for one of the 9 commissionerships is because water is life. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter what age you are. It doesn't matter what religion you are. We are all unified by water. And if we don't take care of it, then we're not taking care of ourselves. So that's why this agency is incredibly important to Cook County, because it is the steward for water in Cook County. And that's why I decided to run for it.
I've got to tell you, I've been voting in Cook County for like 12 years now, and 4 years before that back in college. And it was not until your race that I really thought about the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. So I'd see
You're not alone.
I'd see it on the ballot. I would, maybe pay attention to it before the election and think about it. Maybe. I'd always vote for Democrats, but that was about the extent. I even knew a guy who was running for it a few years ago, but I still didn't think about this race. So how do people find out about open positions for this board? How does it work together? It seems like this sort of like murky backroom sort of place to me, having no idea what it is. So how does that all play out? How did you even know there was a seat opening?
Well, so there are 9 commissionerships, and the reason I ran here is because one of the previous commissioners, his name was Tim Bradford, unfortunately and untimely passed away in December, and that was in the news. So that was one thing. The second thing is I'm a water nerd. I have spent 30 plus years working for the public interest in water, litigating and running a nonprofit advocacy organization called the Alliance for the Great Lakes, all because I just so believe that water is precious and it's one of the most important natural treasures that we have. It's a building block to life. So when I heard about this, several folks talked to me a little bit about the Water Reclamation District. I already knew about the district, but they talked to me about, you ought to think about running. So that was a big part of it right there.
And so since you brought that up, let's talk then about the weirdness of this particular race. So Bradford died in December, and that was just a few days before the filing deadline.
Correct.
And so, as I understand it, nobody was able to gather enough signatures quickly enough. In Cook County, typically you need a lot of signatures to get on the ballot. And so nobody was able to do that quickly enough to get on the primary ballot. We have very early primaries in Illinois. It was March 20th this year. And so filing happens very early in December as well.
That's all correct. A lot of people didn't even know about Commissioner Bradford's passing until after the deadline.
What was the next step there? Is there like a standard way that people decide how to start a write-in campaign? What was the next step, sort of logistically? What happened?
I think the first thing is just knowing which party you are going to run with. And, for a long, long time, I have considered myself very independent-minded, but I worked for President Obama, and I was part of a Democratic administration. And so the Democratic Party had folks who reached out to me, but also the Cook County Clerk's Office had guidance on this as well. They put out guidance that talked about the steps you go through as a write-in candidate. And the thing that had happened was you had to file a paper called a Declaration of Intent to be a write-in candidate. And that had to be filed by January 18th. So there was a process to it, and it wasn't, there were people who are not political insiders who knew about it and filed. There were people who were very tuned in to what was going on politically who also filed, and they just followed the instructions of the Cook County Clerk's Office.
And so once you've filed that you're going to be a write-in candidate, what does that mean in terms of what needs to happen in the primary election for you to get on the ballot in the general election? Well,
the first thing that you need to be mindful of, at least in this particular race, is the guidance from the Cook County Clerk's Office was that you needed a minimum amount of write-ins, because nobody could get petitions in the time that was left after Commissioner Bradford died. The next possible way to get on the ballot in November was to be a write-in candidate, and you needed to have a minimum number of write-ins. That minimum number corresponded with the number of valid signatures that you would have had on a petition. I hope I'm not getting too much in the weeds for people here, but
not for our listeners.
No.
Oh, good. Well, that's why I love listeners like yours, because this stuff is totally cool to me. There needed to be, if you were to file petitions with signatures, there needed to be a minimum of 8,075 valid signatures on those petitions. So as a result, the Cook County Clerk's Office said anybody who is filing to be a write-in candidate will need a minimum of the same number, 8,075 write-ins, to be able to kind of pass step number one to get onto the ballot in November. Step number two, of course, is if you get through that minimum, you still need to have more write-ins than anybody else who's running. So, step number one, get through that minimum. Step number two, have the top number of write-ins. And then if that happens, you become the nominee for that party and you are named on the ballot in November.
So you were supposed to get a minimum of like 8,000-ish votes. You got like 54,000 write-in votes. How did you do that? How did you get so many people so excited about this election?
Well, I'm still kind of scratching my head myself about that. I think there were a few things. Number one, and this is probably the most inspirational thing to me, is after the election in November 2016, I thought to myself, the qualifications not matter anymore for public office? I mean, can anybody run no matter, what their beliefs are, and no matter what their experience is, and no matter what, their values are? And so for the past 2 years, I've been struggling with, why doesn't that seem to matter? Well, in this instance, it does seem like qualifications really mattered and helped. I'm a Clean Water Act attorney. I was President Obama's Great Lakes Restoration Coordinator. I have worked in the public interest for water my entire career. And it seems like people were hearing that. And that to me was a real inspiration. It gave me such hope after the November 2016 elections that people really are waking up and they really are paying attention to qualifications again. So I think that was one ingredient. Another ingredient was having incredible help. I was very fortunate to have the backing of folks like Deborah Shore and Josina Morita, who are sitting commissioners on the district. And they had folks, constituents and networks themselves, and they sent the message, look, Cam is somebody who knows about water. He's done this work before. That really helped a lot. And then I think another ingredient was I spent a lot of time outside of polling places when early voting started 2 weeks before the primary. And my pitch to folks wasn't, it was, hi, I'm Cam Davis, and I'm running for the Water Reclamation District, but I didn't really go into detail about my qualifications. I really helped educate people about the write-in process. Here's where you look on the ballot, here's what the name should look like, and this is why it's important. And I think that those were some of the top things. There were a lot of others, too, just, I think the rollbacks on the federal level with this White House denigrating the importance of air, water, and land protection as our life support system. I think people were concerned about that. But, the list goes on. But those are, I think, a few key ingredients to why the write-in turnout on this particular race was such an eye-opener and really a surprise to so many people.
It helps that you have a short, easy-to-spell name.
I have thanked my parents for that over and over again.
I'm going to claim credit for 50 of those write-ins votes for you, so.
Why stop there? Claim credit for 100 if you want.
I mean, I'm not saying I didn't get 100 for you, but I didn't get 54,000 for you.
Well, thank you. Our waterways in Cook County, thank you.
I think a lot of people like me had just never thought about the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District very much. So, just anybody saying to them, and I said a bunch of stuff on Twitter and Facebook, I would just be like, look, hey, you've never heard of this thing, but you need to write in this, and nobody questioned me. They said, oh, okay, I'll write in that guy. So, I think, yeah, it did. And, I'll have to share this again on Twitter now, but my 6-year-old wrote, I had him sit down and write Cam Davis, and I filmed it. And then I put it out on Twitter and was like, so easy, even a kindergartner couldn't do it. Trying to shame people into to doing it. So, I think it's so exciting for people in Chicago when there is some sort of grassroots action we can take.
Right.
By and large, it's a very democratic, progressive-leaning place, and so maybe there's not that much we can do right here at home to get out the vote and stuff like that. So having anything we could focus on locally was very exciting.
I think the implications are bigger and far more far-reaching than you may think. One of the things that others have been doing for decades is really populating municipal offices, elected offices. Whereas, on the Democratic side, we are very enamored with national politics like congressional offices and international affairs. But when it comes to state and municipal elections and races, we typically have not given them their due. And I think that that's been to our own peril. Mm-hmm. So the fact that people are starting to think, well, maybe we need to get good people in at the ground level is really wise. I mean, it's a healthy thing for our democracy.
And Dan Hopkins had a piece on 538 today talking about how politics has shifted more towards interest in national politics. It used to be people were much more interested in state and local government races, and now it's shifted sort of to people being all about the national races and sort of ignoring a lot of the state and local races. And I think maybe that contributes to a lot of the sense of sort of disaffection and dissatisfaction that people feel with government because they don't get so involved in the state and local races and issues that are actually the things and the offices that affect their lives the most.
Yeah, you said it really well. And in fact, I was kind of on the edge of my seat poised to say the same thing. It's ironic that there's so much interest, not a bad thing, but so much interest in federal elections when, in fact, it's really those offices closer to home at the municipal level that make so much more of a direct impact in terms of our daily lives. The Water Reclamation District, for example, it's an independent taxing agency. So when your property taxes come in, there is a line item for the Water Reclamation District. We pay property taxes to the district to clean our water and make sure that it's healthy when it goes back out into the world. and it's a $1.3 billion agency. That is an agency with a big impact right here